Top 10 2022 action figures under $50. DorkLair! Welcome to another DorkLair collecting video. Happy New Year to all of the DorkLair denizens. I hope you had a wonderful 2022, and we are here to wrap up the year with some top 10 lists. And like last year, I am going to break up my lists into 3 pricing tiers just to make things a little more fair and a little more just manageable. So this year we're going to go with the under 50, which is this current video, and then later on I will publish a 50 to 150, which is a little bit different from last year. Last year was 50 to 100, but just the way my collection shifted this year, I did pick up a lot more figures above that 150 range, so it just makes more sense to do that. I'll probably do top 10 between 50 and 150, and I'll also do probably a top 5 over 150. Towards the end of the week or maybe the first week of January. Okay, so as far as the rules go for my own personal list and how I went about making my list, I'm only including figures that I own, that I collected this year, and I'm only including figures that released in 2022. Something may have released like in December of 2021, but wouldn't have made last year's list because I didn't get it in hand until January or something like that. But other than that type of situation, these are all 2022 new releases, which is why this Black Knight is not in my top 10, though I wish it were, because I was able to get the Black Knight for the first time. I never bought it originally when it was first issued in the Covenant of Shadows wave. And then when I got it in hand this year, I was just completely blown away. It's, to me, one of the best Legion Builder figures. It does feel like a little more premium than the regular Legion Builders because it just has that shinier paint. It doesn't feel like a super basic figure because it has that awesome black shiny paint. And then it's got those red parts that give it a little variety right there. And in terms of my own personal approach to Mythic Legions, which is popping and swapping is my favorite thing, as a lot of people know, this figure is probably the best one for doing swaps. It just lends itself so well to so many other figures because it's all black and everything goes with black. So yeah, so consider this a runner-up, if you will. Consider it number 11. But since this was not technically released in 2022, it was actually reissued. It's not on my list. Had it been eligible, though, it probably would have been in my top 3. But enough about the Black Knight. Let's get into the list. Number 10. This is the Action Force Infantry Commando that was a Dorkside Toys exclusive, and this figure rocks. It's brand new, so it's kind of one of those ones I'm hesitant to put on a list because of recency bias, and the figures always feel so shiny and new when you first get them, so it's hard to tell if it's going to stand the test of time, but I can already tell. This figure rocks, and a lot of it has to do with how it compares to the figures that came out last year. The initial wave of Valverse figures were definitely awesome. I saw the potential. I had very glowing and positive reviews, but there were a few issues that made just the nature of the line kind of contradict itself. And that was the ease of articulating, popping and swapping, changing parts. Everything was so stiff and rigid, and the joints were so stiff. You had to just always constantly be heating and warming, and the pegs wouldn't peg in on the vests. And it was just like a frustrating thing to have such an awesomely articulated, really cool, like very hyper realistic looking army line that you really want to be messing around with. So difficult to mess around with. But this figure I just got in hand, and really they have fixed everything about it. Straight out of the box, the articulation is easy and smooth. The plastic feels nicer. It doesn't feel like that same rigid, hard plastic like last year. Pegging in the vests is just wonderful. This to me represents Valaverse dialing in the factories, getting that process down, really getting the materials and everything nice. If you don't have a Valaverse figure yet, I recommend getting this one or one of the most recent released figures. Number 9, the Vintage Collection Deathwatch Mandalorian was one of the first figures, at least for me, that I got in hand that had the new hips and that new thigh swivel and just that full-blown, it just feels like a miniaturized Black Series figure. It's fully articulated. They just hit a home run with this figure, and I know a lot of people are down on Hasbro right now in terms of Star Wars because they're putting out like a ton of reissues and repaints. It's all clones and Mandos. But when this did come out, like this was a largely new figure, and it blew me away. And I got all the other ones, and I army built the other ones too, like the Jetpack Commando and the Super Commandos and all that stuff. But this to me represents some of the best that the vintage collection is doing, and they just feel super premium at that smaller scale. That's why the Deathwatch Mandalorian made it to my top 10 action figures under $50. Number 8 surprised the hell out of me, and that is the Masters of the Universe Origins Buzz-Off figure that I got simply to kind of add to my Buzz-Off focus. I don't collect Origins, I don't intend to, but I was super impressed by how nice this figure is. All the joints feel really good. The finish is awesome. It's got that flat finish on the limbs. The plastic feels great. It's just a great looking figure. Even the paint is nice and clean, and it's got that super retro vibe. It does a great job of recreating the shape of the original figure, but having modern articulation. So this Origins line is something special. I don't collect it. I think it would just be a rabbit hole I can't go down, but I can see why there are some massive fans of this Origins line. Number 7, the Vintage Collection Maldo Kreese Mandalorian and Grogu set with the spiders from that episode of The Mandalorian with the Frog Lady, which is, I know, not a lot of people's favorites, but I just love that episode, and this figure represents it perfectly. And just note that the custom cape from Harker Customs and the Darksaber from Moff Gideon, they don't actually come with this figure. I just happen to have them on there in the current setup that I use. But this set is awesome. This is what a deluxe set should be. It comes with multiple little side figures. These spiders are great. I actually picked up a bunch of these sets, and I have spiders crawling all over my Razor Crest. This is like the perfect set to go with the Razor Crest. I love all of the ice all over the figure, and the articulation was improved. This Mandalorian got ankle rockers. The Grogu is super cute. Like, just everything about this release is awesome. It's one of those deluxe sets that actually feels deluxe. Number 6, Boss Fight Studios Vitruvian Hacks Fairy Warrior from that recent all-female wave that was absolutely top to bottom a killer wave. I could have put any one of those characters on this list, but this is my favorite one from that wave. It's so good. I love the metallic sheen to it. I love all of the natural sculpt work going on. You have the wings. The weapon is really unique. It's just an awesome piece. It has an alternate head sculpt. The articulation is fantastic. And added to that, this is technically in scale with Mythic Legions because fairies can be any size, right? Like, so this is a smaller 1/18th scale figure. This would work great with your Mythic Legions. Number 5 in my top 10 action figures of 2022 under $50 is the Masterverse Beastman Deluxe New Eternia figure. I've been loving this retail line. These figures are awesome. Once they started doing the New Eternia and some of the classic looks, I jumped in and I had to put at least one of them on the list. And for me, so far, my favorite one is this Beastman. I probably could have put the 40th anniversary He-Man on here, but this one edged it out just a little bit. It's got that deluxe pack with all the stuff. I'm not totally sold on that head sculpt on that He-Man figure, but Beastman definitely steals the show in terms of the Masterverse figures that I picked up in 2022. Number 4, Star Wars The Vintage Collection Dark Times Darth Vader from Obi-Wan Kenobi. This to me is probably the best Darth Vader action figure I own in my entire collection. This thing is so good. It's got extra hands. The articulation is phenomenal. It's a Vader that's like right out of the box. It's awesome. The only thing they could have done to improve it would have been to include a wired cape, like just a little bit better cloth goods upgrade on it would have been awesome. But otherwise, this figure rocks. It's so good. I'm pumped that they made this Vader. I know, we get our Vaders and clones and Mandos and all that stuff. But still, I gotta recognize when something is awesome. Number 3. Every year, there's one Mythic Legions figure from whatever wave releases that just blows me away, that I was not expecting to love. And for me, this year is the Baron Voligar 2 from the Alithia wave. I don't know if it was the way they had the cloth goods on there. I am not a fan anymore of the original type of cloth goods that they used. So seeing that maybe toned it down a little bit in terms of my expectations. It's sort of this lordly, regal kind of Baron Voligar. But once I got it out of the box and I posed it up and I realized just how awesome the armor is top to bottom, and the head sculpt is probably the best vampire head sculpt in the line, and just everything about it just oozes action. Like, this dude is not just some regal guy with fur just hanging out in a castle. This dude is 100% out there on the battlefield, taking down his enemies. He is awesome. Number 2. Now, Artemis Silvercord, on the other hand, was one I was highly anticipating, and it absolutely met my expectations, from the brand new C. Jessam designed cloth goods to the new parts, that awesome shoulder armor, this beautiful head sculpt. The woodland vibe is just so good. I love the new minimal fairy wings and everything about her with this bow. Just a top to bottom beautiful, beautiful work of art in sculpture and design. Just such a great piece right here. Artemis Silvercord is legit one of the best Mythic Legions figures out there. Number 1 should come as no surprise to anybody who subscribes to this YouTube channel, follows on Instagram, watches the live streams, any of that stuff, because I've been singing the praises of this Lord Bardrick figure since the day it came out. At the time of release, this figure was top to bottom an all new Mythic Legion sculpt. The head sculpt is phenomenal. Again, back to what I said about Artemis, this is artwork. The sculpture is incredible. The paintwork is next level. The leather looks real. You've got that new belt, the new shoulder pauldrons, torso, all these awesome new parts. Everything about this figure rocks. The only thing it would really be missing is the C. Jessam designed cloth goods, like maybe a cape or something would be kind of cool, but it doesn't really even need it. This figure as is incredible. It's a unique character, again, with the woodland vibe. I just can't say enough in terms of how much I love this figure. It could be my all-time favorite Mythic Legions figure. Like, it is that good to me. And we'll see what happens with these upcoming continuing waves. But this is one of those examples where it's like, people who want to go back and collect old Mythic Legions, don't do that. Or at least don't do that until you have like these ones. Like, these new ones are better. They're better than the original ones. They keep getting better and better every year. This figure is a shining example of the nonstop improvements in Mythic Legions. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Stay tuned for my next list, which will be the figures between $50 and $150. And I'll also do a top 5 over $150. And until next time, may the force be with you.